Is the UK government becoming a mouthpiece for the EU? Because it just feels like, actually, from what I'm hearing, that we are just bending over backwards, as we did with the EU negotiations, as we messed up, actually, with Northern Ireland. Have we become a mouthpiece, and what lessons have been learnt with Northern Ireland, what you are taking into negotiations with the EU over this?
We're not a mouthpiece, far from it. We're in a very live negotiation. Our principles have been set out for 3 years. We've been negotiating for 2.5+ years on these issues, and this committee has been scrutinising us every step of the way. But we're in a very live, intense period of negotiation right now. So some of these matters, as I've promised to David earlier on, we'll write back on.
So, Robbie, if I can go back to you, please. So what lessons have been learnt from the negotiations with you regarding Northern Ireland that you are bringing into these negotiations?
Again, I think as the Minister explained earlier, the context for Northern Ireland and the Windsor Framework is a very different context to the context of Gibraltar. I mean, for one thing, Gibraltar would have direct open access to Schengen in a way that is not the case in Northern Ireland. Of course, there are some lessons, and we speak to colleagues who have worked on the Windsor Framework, but there are more differences, I think it's fair to say, than there are parallels.
Okay, thank you. Right, on to trade and level playing field. On the trade aspects of the deal, the UK-Spain New Year's Eve Framework Agreement touched upon competition considerations and the idea of the UK-EU level playing field commitments. Should we expect the same sort of environment with labour and social provisions as provided in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement? And given the size of Gibraltar's trade with the EU, as Sammy Wilson already mentioned, why would these arrangements be necessary? So if I can go with the Minister first, please.
Well, we need to have reciprocity and mutual agreement on the arrangements. That would be true for any negotiation that we have or in any other treaty we have with other entities in other countries. So that's what we're seeking to do here. And they would be proportionate given given the goods that are being traded in Gibraltar. And given the volume of trade as well.
Do you have anything to add, Robbie?
I mean, just to endorse what the Minister said, but also to highlight that, of course, these aspects of the negotiations are ongoing.
Are the EU fearful of the UK as using Gibraltar as a backdoor to the single market?
They would want to make sure that they want to protect the single market. That's clear, and in any negotiation, as I said, we need to find some reciprocal arrangements to make what elements of trade are required to be done on a mutually agreed basis. The difference here with Northern Ireland, as I said earlier on, is this is predominantly about freedom of movement of people. The people could be bringing with them goods, but this is predominantly about fluidity of people. And from our perspective, is not predominantly about access to a single market, but there are single market implications, and that's why we have to be cognizant of that. We're not negotiating in a vacuum, we're negotiating with the EU.